Member Lakshman,
Yeah, I'm here.
Member Souza,
I'm here. I'm about a minute away from the place.
Member Pacheco, Member Tauria, Member Core, Member Lutz,
Just got it.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes, present.
Chair Eldred.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We have
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Oh, excuse me, Joe is here. My name has not been called yet.
Noted.
yes.
All right.
Good. Yes, thank you.
So this meeting is being conducted in a hybrid fashion. All meetings are accessible to people with disabilities, individuals who need special assistance or a disability-related modification or accommodation to participate in this meeting, or who have a disability and wish to request an alternative format for the meeting materials, should contact the clerk of the board at least 2 working days before the meeting. And you can email them at cob@ebce.org or call 510-906-0491. If you have anything distributed that you wish to have distributed to the committee, please email it to the clerk by 5 p.m. the day prior to the meeting. All right, so welcome everybody. Glad you made it, and excited to see how many folks were able to participate from a remote location. Thank you to staff for the assistance in posting requirements. Our next agenda item is public comment. And as a reminder, public comment is reserved for individuals wishing to address the committee on EBCE related matters. So if it is not related, then it should be done at the end. And only on matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. So public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comments, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. The committee chair may increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker. So have we received any public comments or are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
Yes, we have 2 public comment and 2 members of the public with their hand raised.
Perfect. Can you read in the 2 public comments?
They wish to speak at the.
Oh, they wish to speak? Perfect. That would be great.
All right, Travis Gabriel, you are recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hi, so my name is Travis Gabriel. Oh man, my notes just disappeared because it just changed formats. Okay, so my name is Travis Gabriel. I'm from the Reclaim Our Power Utility Justice campaign. And one of the initiatives of our campaign has been working with community-based organizations in frontline communities to design and implement microgrids. The goal is to help their neighborhoods, which are historically overburdened with pollution from the fossil fuel industry, to decarbonize, to lower their utility bills, and most importantly, to offer resilience hubs that people can go to get their needs met during a power outage or a larger scale emergency. So we read about your work that you've been doing developing a virtual power plant using solar and storage technology, and we got really excited. So first, I want to really uplift those efforts you've already made and congratulate you on the work that you've put in. It's really important stuff and it's been really inspiring. But the reason that I'm commenting is because I would like to initiate a conversation about what it would take to implement a similar program with an explicit focus on equity and supporting resilience in the most marginalized communities in EBCE's territory. So what if after building out microgrids on municipal determined critical infrastructure, like in your current project, your next project could be to support deployment on buildings in frontline communities? Especially if sites were determined by the people of the neighborhoods themselves to best meet their needs during an emergency. And also, instead of financing it through PPAs or long-term loans, we could draw grant money down from the state, so low-resourced communities who can't afford microgrids could still experience the full benefits of those systems. So this is a conversation I feel really excited to pursue with y'all. I'm using this public comment period to open the discussion, but we'll also be reaching out to the executive committee, board members, and any other decision makers who might be interested in having a discussion. So thank you so much for your time and consideration. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, and shout out to staff for the awesome press that our microgrid work has been getting recently. It's been really impressive and a testament to the good work our staff is doing. Thank you. Who's the next speaker?
Then Rainey, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, sorry about that. I had to unmute. So I'd like to also thank the district for the efforts that they've done in advancing microgrids. But one of the things I was wondering about is if the district could also help out with making schools more resilient. I think schools would be one of the more welcome, locations for people to go to during, blackout efforts and things like that. And so what I'm wondering about, I mean, many of the schools in the Bay Area are already, solar powered, but they don't have battery systems. And my daughter, who's a teacher in one of the local schools here in Livermore, they had an outage and the kids had to basically, stay in the dark the entire school day. And it was pretty cold because it was only a few months ago. And so if, the neighborhood was completely blacked out, if they needed someplace to go in order to withstand any inconvenience, I think schools would be one of the most appropriate places to have microgrids with battery storage. So if there was some way of getting battery storage as well as the solar that's already in place, I think that'd be a great use of the system that you guys have been so good at developing. And that's all I have to say. And thanks again for the efforts you're making.
Thank you, Van. And are there 2 additional members of the public with their answers?
We have 4 now.
Excellent. So 3 minutes, people are doing it good to keep it under 2. So that's lovely, but go for it.
Sounds good. Vaughn, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Actually, I was going to call on something similar to the initial speaker. I'm not a member of any organization that does that or anything, but it would seem to me that the wealthier users of PG&E and all that kind of stuff are recognizing that it's be much better to invest in solar and storage and get off of PG&E, and for that matter, get off of EBCE. The microgrid idea is far in advance of what anything PG&E can do other than to try and stop people from doing it. But I think eventually everybody's going to have their own solar and stuff like that. And the wealthier people are going to do it first, and all of the whole distribution and transmission stuff is going to come down to sitting on the shoulders of the poorest people. There should be something the EBC can do besides make loans available. You grant money to certain organizations for doing all sorts of things, in some case, millions of dollars. You should be able to pick out the lowest income neighborhoods by zip code or something, or find out where they could provide for a whole neighborhood, and do a neighborhood at a time. The quotes for 6K system is about $15,000, a 5 hour battery, which allowed the users to shave the peak power. Probably maybe not another 10, maybe 15,000. For $1 million, you can do several houses, maybe a whole neighborhood. Not as, like the previous speaker said, like a grant or a gift to those neighborhoods, and PG&E would get the control of the power, or not PG&E, EBC would get the control of the power, but the users would be free for the future of not having to worry about how they're going to pay their power bills or if they're going to have power when the lights go out. We know the wealthier people are going to have that. It would seem like that would be a real benefit if you could start a program where you're encouraging, you're actually building resilience and independence for the lower income neighborhoods, because that's what the higher income neighborhoods are going to be doing. And PG&E is getting desperate. They're trying to tax people by their income, they recognize they're a dinosaur industry. Something's going to have to change in the next 10 or 15 years, and now's a good time to start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate this moment to speak, and I love what everybody's talking about. I'm an EBCE member in San Leandro, California. Appreciate all you guys, everything you do. But I have a concern about folks that are trying to either they put an electric car charger on their, bring it to where they live, or a solar PV or battery storage, and they don't have enough capacity on their main panel, their main electrical panel. And I just learned recently that there's a device called a meter collar adapter, and if it's specifically designed for homes where there is not enough capacity, like so many of the East Bay homes that are older and their main panel is smaller. And it's a device that mounts between the meter and just right behind the meter, actually. So the electricity comes to the meter, and then it goes to the collar, and the collar adapter, and then it goes to the main panel. So as long as there's capacity at the transformer and the main line coming from from the power grid to the home, then they can put this collar adapter on, and you don't hit the homeowner, or wherever you live, they don't have to upgrade your main panel, which can be very expensive. And these meter collars are just a couple $100, and they're usually sold to the utility, and the utility installs them. And they're being installed all across the country by different utility companies. Not too many in California yet. I don't know why. I think it's mostly because the big utilities are against them and trying to keep them out for some reason. San Diego has the utility company there has embraced them, and they're installing them. But as far as I know, Southern California Edison and PG&E don't allow it yet. So I'm really hoping the EBCE will lead the way for getting this new technology available. It'll just greatly increase the number of people that can afford to embrace these new technologies that we all need, and that we all want to see installed. So they're called meter collar adapters. One of the companies that makes them is a collaboration between Siemens and a company called Connect, DER. I think there are other companies too, but please make this an agenda item in the future, and please start researching this as soon as possible, so that we can get these. I can't wait to get one at where I live, so that I can start to enter the modern age and embrace these technologies that can reduce our fossil fuel footprint. So again, appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Jessica Tovar, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Tovar here with the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I had 2 points to make. The first one is I've been asking about the net energy metering incentive that EBCE would be offering, and I'm really encouraging that EBCE offers something that looks like energy metering 2.0, being that it's something that incentivizes people are able to put solar and battery on their business, home, what have you. It's really important that EBCE offer a good incentive, do better than the state right now, who has actually slashed that incentive. And then I do want to speak to also the microgrids, is that is what we have been asking for, especially since 2020, when we were inundated with so much smoke that literally the sun was covered, and 9 a.m. looked like 9 p.m. And there were rolling blackouts, a heat wave in the middle of a pandemic, and so many people were going without electricity. Well, we really desperately need that energy resilience in the East Bay area, in the communities that EBCE serves. And the only way that we can get resilience, create those jobs, and have more of this local clean energy build out in our communities is if we get EBCE to support us in resourcing these microgrids in our communities. And in offering a net energy metering incentive, we can also build wealth in our communities from actually generating clean energy for our neighbors and our surrounding communities. This is all very important for us. I really hope that you take, these calls seriously. Now is the time to take action. You've been very successful with the city's critical facilities. We need to do these investments in community critical and trusted facilities. And we're willing to work with you to do that. Thank you. Clean power to the people.
Thank you, Jessica.
Tom Kelly, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening. I just wanted to comment on this issue about school districts and how EBCE might be able to help them deal with power outages and other issues that come up. We worked for years with school districts and helped dozens of school districts install solar. And at the time, batteries really weren't a thing. They sort of came in at the tail end of our work. But interestingly, Marine Clean Energy has been offering a special tariff that school districts can take advantage of that allow them to meet some of MCE's resource adequacy obligations. And so schools are like perfectly situated for this because, they're open 9 months out of the year, but they're closed in the summer when, at this point in time, we're likely to see a greater need for power that sometimes the grid is unable to support. And so what MCE would do is they work, for example, with Pittsburgh Unified School District. They help them install batteries. And then they pay a premium on the electricity that they're able to tap into during the 4 to 9 period when rates are high, or during a period of time when there's a pressure on the grid. So it'd be great. I mean, and EBCE service territory, there are dozens of schools that have solar. So it would be great to see EBCE working with those districts to get batteries installed that would allow those schools to operate for some period of time during a power outage, but where EBCE could tap into that battery resource to help deal with their resource adequacy obligations. Thank you.
It's all for public comment.
Thank you, Tom. And thank you for everyone who commented and participated today. It's your engagement and ongoing involvement is vital to the health of this organization. All right, seeing no further public comment, we will move on to agenda item 3, which is the approval of minutes from March 13th, 2023. I am seeking a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
Member Landry, motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Lutz, second. Is there any discussion on this item? And have we received any public comments, or are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
There are no members of the public with their hand raised and no public comment.
All right, great. Then as we have members participating remotely, we will do a roll call vote.
Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Hugh, Member Liu,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman,
Yes.
Member Tarrea, Member Pacheco, excused, Member Souza,
Yes.
Member Kaur, Member Lutz.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Chair Alfred.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you. You're being very efficient this evening. So the next agenda item is the CAC Chair Report. And this one has a couple different pieces. The first is to announce that I just learned this moment that we did have a member of the CAC step down. And that member is,
Duggan.
pardon?
Member Duggan.
Member Duggan has stepped down from the CAC. They represented East County. And so we're short in our representation for sure. So if folks know people who are interested, organizations that would be involved, we definitely want to maintain our geographic representation as well as representation from other important constituent groups. So we will be having application period will reopen. The last I heard that was like in soon, that would be around now. So that will be coming up soon and I'm sure we'll get an update on that. I will clarify the timeline with staff. But that's where we are. Just wanted to let folks know. We've received a couple communications from community organizations that I wanted to share with folks. The first is a resource that is available that's really cool. It's originated from the Center for Biological Diversity, which is one of the 3 organizations that filed for a rehearing of the CPUC's recent decision to undermine the expansion of rooftop solar. It's called Rooftop Solar Justice, and you can Google Rooftop Solar Justice, and the Center for Biological Diversity will also put a link to it in the minutes. There was a recent, very disappointing decision, I think from the 9th Circuit, that overturned Berkeley's gas ban. So that just came out and is definitely will affect a variety of things, including electrification efforts in some of our member cities. I imagine we will see some fallout legislation due to that decision. And there's one other item, but Member Hernandez, are you
Yes.
able to cover the items on the board agenda that we will not be discussing this evening?
There are some items on the agenda that we're not covering this evening are the Energy Council Stop Waste Cooperative Agreement Amendment. That's going to be adding funding to existing heat on water heater program. There will be a treasury report there at the board of directors meeting about the cash balances, a supplier diversity report overview. It's going to be a specific report to the CPUC, and that's going to be presented at the board of directors meeting. There's also going to be the cquaint.io CSA amendment to include a dedicated server for the 2023 RFO. Those are the notes that I have. And then also additional resolution for the CEO to negotiate and execute a lease for East Bay Community Energy headquarters. I think they're looking to be at a new location. Let's see, 1 year and 10 month sublease, followed by another 91 months for office space at 1999 Harrison Street. I think they're also going to look at 2021 Broadway, as well as 2100 Franklin. So I think there's some options there to negotiate one of those 3 locations where new headquarters either stay in place, looking at a couple of options still in Oakland. And there'll be some committee appointments by the chair for FFP and MRL. I'll look to Adrian to remind us of the acronyms: Finance, Administrative, and Procurement. And MRL is
Marketing, regulatory, legislative.
Thank you. Marketing, regulatory. Legislative. Cool. That is it.
Okay, so these are important topics too, but we couldn't have the whole board meeting here too. So we're focusing on a couple of the areas that the board is specifically seeking feedback from the CAC or is of interest to the community that we are aware of. So that's why we've chosen tonight's agenda items. If you wish to make comment or weigh in on any of those items that are not on tonight's agenda, you are encouraged to attend the board meeting on Wednesday and make those comments. If you are a member of the CAC, the members of the public are always encouraged to attend and comment. There is one other item that is kind of serious, and that is it's a finding by the CPUC, who we've been very excited because our neighbors in Stockton will be joining East Bay Community Energy, but unfortunately the CPUC did not confirm Stockton's start date with us. And well, they did not confirm the earliest possible start date, which is April 2024. Am I right? Thanks, Alex. And have set a very kind of vague timeline for a year out. And there is actually things that we can do about this as far as advocacy goes. And so since we represent constituent groups and organizations, I'm calling upon members of the CAC and members of the public who are listening tonight to join us in like turning in letters, making phone calls, doing whatever it is that we can do. Specifically, I believe staff is looking for letters of support. Is that correct, Alex? Great. And the timeline for this is fairly accelerated. We did just learn that the CPUC intends to consider Stockton's start of service at their April 27th meeting. Remote participation is available, public comment is available. And if folks have members of their organizations in Stockton or are connected to community groups or labor groups or whatever in Stockton, that is really important as well. You are definitely able to submit support from your not Stockton based organizations as well. So we have some really powerful letters that have been submitted by various allies, political and otherwise. And if you want any more questions on that, please reach out directly to Alex DeGiorgio and Adrian. Please do CC myself. I will do any support work that I can. This is really serious. It will cost them a lot of money not to be able to join, and it will harm their ability to make their greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. And this is not an acceptable decision by the CPUC, but we need to stand together to support them in joining this organization as quickly as possible. So that is it for the chair report. Now there's likely to be questions on some of those things. So clarifying questions can come from the CAC. If not, we'll go to see if there's any public comment or any members of the public with their hands raised, and then we'll come back for CAC questions.
Yes, we have two.
So if there are members of the public with their hands raised, go for it.
We have two. Tom Kelly, you are recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'd be interested in seeing what the CPUC had to say about Stockton's enrollment. From my perspective, I actually think it's a good thing. And the reason is, unless Stockton is enrolling all clients at 100% renewable, their emissions are going to increase 5 times over what they currently are receiving from PG&E. And I've talked to you about this a zillion times. We've seen the data on EBCE's greenhouse gas emissions. So until EBCE gets its GHGs below PG&E as its formation documents require, then it's actually a good thing that Stockton is being delayed in joining EBCE. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second comment? Go for it.
Yes, Jessica Tamor, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. First of all, as the alliance who advocated for a community choice program, the intent was for an alternative to PG&E, and to have a program that actually invests in the community locally, and specifically in developing cleaner energy at a local level for all the benefits that that could bring. I am frustrated that we haven't done more for the community groups on the ground. I have more of a question because I don't recall this happening in consideration of Tracy, but maybe I'm wrong. Is there a precedent for the CPUC having to vote or potentially barring a city from joining a community choice program? That's it. Thanks.
If I get a nod from Alex, I can try and answer that question.
Oh yeah, this is an unprecedented situation.
There were 3 cities that were not approved at the same time that they approved a bunch of other cities. And this is a first, and it's not okay.
Did they approve 3 others?
They approved others at the same time. So.
Why?
So. Yep.
Did they say why?
I don't have a ton of information on it. Alex, do you want to, or Annie, just because you're my staff that I see up there right now, do you want to try and tackle why? Any information we can arm the public with is helpful.
We can't hear you, Annie.
You're muted.
Sorry, I was double muted. I did just want to say, because it is ongoing litigation, we're limited in what we can say. I can see that Marie has popped up, but I think right now it is sort of, we have our position, CPUC has their position, and we are not in agreement.
Is the PUC publication and reasoning public when they made the decision?
There has not been a decision from the PUC. There is a draft resolution from staff, and at the 4/27 meeting is when the commission will vote on that draft resolution from staff.
Is the draft resolution public?
Marie is nodding that it is. I wasn't sure whether or not it was.
Yes, it is. I don't have the resolution number, so I can't give you a quick and easy reference to go search online.
The CPUC's agenda for the April 27th meeting was just published today. So my guess is it may be there. There may be a link to it there.
Yeah, why don't I suggest that post-meeting, we'll share with Adrian and he can circulate to the CAC the link to the PUC agenda for 4/27.
But Jim, to your question, when the CPUC certified EBCE's updated implementation plan, it did not articulate a reason for why it was not certifying the timeline. Adrian, I'll send you that link.
Thank you. And is there further public comment?
No.
Okay, great. Then I will come back to CAC members. Member Landry?
Yes. You mentioned in your report the overturning by the Ninth Circuit Berkeley's ban on gas.
Mm-hmm.
And, which seems to be going in the wrong direction, in my humble opinion. So, not even humble opinion, it is going in the wrong direction. Do we have any, was there any rationale presented by the Ninth circuit that you are aware of? Maybe the
Yeah,
staff knows something.
Yes, absolutely. So the Ninth Circuit determined that it would be, I forgot the actual word they used. It's not tantamount to creation. It's, but in effect, by prohibiting new gas lines, they were prohibiting the purchase of gas equipment, and they didn't have the ability to do that. It's a disappointing decision. I would be happy to forward information on it. I haven't actually checked in with staff about it. If they're following it, I imagine that they are, because this will be an important piece of legislation affecting our member cities. It also just came out, so I don't know that there's been much time for analysis or response.
Okay.
But it's a pretty high up decision, and there certainly hasn't been any response to it as of yet that I am familiar with. But
thank you, thank you.
Member Litz?
It was a Reagan appointee judge, a Trump appointee judge, and a non-Ninth Circuit Trump appointee judge who was assigned to it temporarily.
Well, that also is helpful.
Yes, I won't say what I think, but I think I've said it.
Great. All right, so, good. All right, yes.
On both of these issues, would it help if the CAC made a statement and, officially voted on it?
Alex, that's a really good question. Can the CAC submit a statement of support?
Regarding Stockton's enrollment timeline?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that, what the CAC can do specifically. I know that individual groups that CAC members work with and represent, those groups certainly could.
We can. The question to staff is, would you deem it helpful? We absolutely can as a body. The question
Yes, all letters of support would be helpful.
All right, this is not an agendized item exactly, but this is part of the report. And I would like to know if there is any opposition from CAC members to drafting a letter of support for Stockton's enrollment, timely enrollment into ABC. If there's any issues.
Supportive.
Do you have an issue?
Well, listening to member comment, I do have, I certainly want Stockton in our, East Bay community energy. But I am, given Tom Kelly's comment, I want to make sure that we are promoting the right kind of energy for that area. We don't want Stockton to be more polluted than what it is.
I feel confident that I can show you the trajectory based on the staff reports that will address your concerns. And I'd be happy to do that.
All right, then. All right.
And we will definitely have ongoing advocacy, as we'll have an agenda item this evening to look at our emissions.
Okay.
And have the opportunity for a more robust discussion at that point about that.
Okay.
And more advocates for cleaner energy faster is always good.
Okay.
Okay. You're also perfectly welcome to have opposition.
Well, I just want to express that I am, as you know, an advocate for renewable, not clean, renewable energy. And I don't want to see, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I don't want to see we're going to advocate for better energy, but I don't want to see as an unintended consequence, the wrong type of energy being delivered to Stockton.
completely support you in that.
So I do share Tom Kelly's, comment. So,
All right.
so with that said,
Okay.
you've heard me. Thank you.
Yep. If there are any members of the CAC is anybody of the CAC having their objection?
Member Susan has her hand raised.
Who does?
Member Souza.
All right, Member Susan?
Yes, I do think that it would be good for Stockton to have a choice. It's not like we're pressing something on it. So that's just my comment.
I know, it was like a lot.
Okay, so you were to recap that because we had a little bit of feedback. You were saying that it would be good for them to have a voice in what's going on?
Sorry, it's noisy in here. It would be good to for them to have a choice in an alternative choice for power is what I'm saying. And it's not like we're thrusting, I don't feel like we're thrusting something upon the people of Stockton. So that's just my opinion.
They've had enthusiastic support. It's been voted in. It's like they've done their outreach. It was a popular swell of community movement that did it with very strong, incredibly well-informed, powerful grassroots allies leading the charge. It's been a really beautiful people's movement. It is their will, and their will is being suppressed by the CPUC in this arbitrary decision. And yeah, Alex. Thank you for that comment, Member Susan.
Yes, I just wanted to remind folks that there is an emissions overview on the agenda.
Yep. Great. Okay, so.
And I hope members of the public will tune in for that too, so everyone's well informed on that.
It is next. It is the next agenda item. So seeing no opposition, I will work with.
If I just kind of clarification, I just want to understand the structure of our meeting. There's sometimes with cities, the structures, so I mean, more of a point of order. Discussion and clarity, sometimes you have legal involved. Are we able to just free flow, have the conversations about this kind of stuff? Like I know we had 3 or 40 comments. And so if it's not agendized, but it's discussed, are we saying we can talk about it more? Because I want to make sure that we're free to, I want to understand our rules of ability to share and discuss things that are not agendized, but were brought up by the chair, and we're having dialogue about the items. So I'm just sensitive to being agendized or not agendized. So as a committee, are we as structured like the board, or we have more freedom to dialogue around items that are not on the agenda?
So this is in the CAC chair report. So items that have happened outside of like in between our meetings. And so that is why I had this sort of like, we can talk about some of the things that are happening, but we're not going to make a motion because it's not properly agendized. But we have had public comment on it. We've had we hear a concern. Our next agenda item is specifically addressing that concern. So it's like we can definitely talk about things that are on the chair report, just like the board can with the CEO report or the CAC report.
It just has to be brief comments of clarity. So that's why I'm just trying to understand how far we go with it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
all.
and we, as the CAC, when we first started, very specifically set up a more loose forum to encourage communication, because this is the forum that the public can have longer discussions in.
Yes.
And so we don't, like I've never turned somebody down from having a second comment or going longer or any of those things, right? Like we're specifically here to try and foster discussion.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That's good.
So you're saying we can't make a motion because it's not on the agenda.
I'm just trying to understand our structure, what can we, can't do, so sometimes you have a legal.
We would be very happy to go over that structure with you. I'm sorry, I'm watching that at 6:48 and we have not gotten to any of the meeting ones.
The chair report will take
We have one more
2
member
minutes.
of the public with their hand.
Oh, we have another member of the public with their hand raised. Great, go for it.
Did you close public comment?
We don't.
I know we don't
Not
close
really.
it.
Not here.
Tom Kelly, you are recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Could you just refresh me, what topic are we on?
Was this, so this is the comment and it'll be 2 because it's a second time on the same topic. It's the CAC chair report, so you can pick any of the things that are on the CAC.
Okay. So I just had a quick look at the CPUC item on why Stockton is not being, their start date is pushed off for a year. Apparently EBCE has been having difficulty meeting its resource adequacy obligations. And the CPUC looks like they've fined EBCE over $6 million since 2019 for failure to meet those obligations. And frankly, I've never heard the board ever be apprised of that situation. So I sent Ann Olivia a link to the report. Take a look at it. If it's true, it's a good thing that Stockton isn't being added because we are not doing what we're obligated to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe this was intentionally discussed where around the cost of RA and the arbitrariness of it versus the cost of the penalty. But we're going to move on because our next agenda item is actually about the emissions overview. Thank you for that link, Tom. I haven't read the report.
Taking a second. This is right here.
And what was that? Okay, so we will close that item out and we will move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, which is the emissions overview. This is an item that is being sent to the board as well and is in response to the concerns that this body and members of the public have brought up around the emission content. And who is presenting this evening?
I am Izzy.
Thank you. Hi, Izzy.
Hi there. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Izzy Carson, and I'm on the Power Resources team at EBCE. Next slide, please. As was just mentioned, this presentation is in response to requests for additional information on Bright Choice emissions. And so primarily this is an overview, and that's really the running theme through all the slides here. So what we'll talk through are EBC products, what contributes to emissions for those products. We'll talk through historical Bright Choice targets, several changes that took place in 2020, impacting emissions reporting and procurement. And finally, where we are now, including a comparison to other CCAs and a quick snapshot of 22 of what our forecasting is. So next slide. We will start here with the power content label. So this is an annual requirement to disclose a mix of sources used to provide electricity. It resembles a nutrition label for electricity. Submission requires a formal third-party audit, and it's reviewed and approved by the CEC. Note that the one that we're looking at here is the 2021 power content label. That is the most recently available. 2022 power content label will not be finalized until October of this year. There is a significant lag. The power content label shows us, essentially it shows us what types of energy we paid for through direct and indirect transactions. So, excuse me, an example of a direct transaction is when we get electricity from a resource, say a solar resource under a long-term PPA, or through a short-term transaction from also a specific resource like a hydro generator out of state in Washington state. An example of an indirect transaction is when we buy electricity through the CAISO, through the open market. That shows up on our power content as unspecified sources of power. And since we don't know exactly which generator or generators that energy comes from, it's assigned an emissions factor that is meant to be reflective of the average emissions level on the electric system. So a couple important distinctions that I want to make here. One is that the power content label is different from RPS. RPS has a multi-year compliance period. The power content label is an individual year annual requirement. So it's a different program, different compliance obligations. And another important distinction that I want to make early on also is RPS versus renewable energy. So while they're often used interchangeably, they are not the same. One is a policy, has a fixed target, and one is a type of fuel. So we'll talk a little bit more about unspecified energy in the next slide. With that, we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a product overview. EBC's 2 customer products right now. We have Renewable 100, which is 100% renewable energy from California solar and wind. Slightly higher price than PG&E. And we have our Bright Choice product, which is our basic plan, costs less than PG&E. And what you see to the right, this image or this graphic is essentially a visual representation of the data that we just saw on the power content label in the previous slide. So we have solar and wind for the Renewable 100. That energy 100% covers the retail load of the customers on that Renewable 100 plan. And then for the Bright Choice, this is reflective of 2021, again, about a little over 42% eligible renewable. There's about 16% hydro on top of that, a little bit of biomass and a little bit of nuclear, comprising about 60%. And that gray area there that you see is unspecified power. So now I was trying to wrap my head around what unspecified power is. I like to think about it as being used for balancing. So you have the 60% procurement that's done on behalf of these Bright Choice customers, and the difference to meet their full load is that unspecified power. Again, the unspecified power is not traceable to a specific generating facility. It's typically a mix of all resource types. It might include renewables, might not, but. Next slide, please.
Hey, Izzy, just as a clarification, in California, it is predominantly gas though, right?
That the average emission level, I believe so, yeah. I believe that the average emissions level is based on gas for the emissions factor assigned to unspecified power.
Because in California, it's predominantly gas that's used as the balancing fuel.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Just to.
Right, and it's reflective of the average.
Mostly, yeah.
Okay, so let's see, renewable energy credits. Or RECs, these are what we use to meet compliance. So a REC is the certificate that's created when renewable energy is generated. One REC is equivalent to 1 megawatt hour of renewable electricity, and they're classified into 3 distinct categories called portfolio content category, or PCCs. And there are PCC1s, PCC2s, and PCC3s. And there are limitations to the amount that each group can count towards under RPS. So PCC1s, these are considered bundled projects. They're from renewable resources where the energy and the REC are delivered together and from the same source. So as an example, you can think of Altamont Pass wind facility in Alameda County. They're delivered together from the same source. PCC2 also comes from renewable resources, but they are generated out of state where the energy is used locally, and then that REC is bundled with substitute energy, not from the same source as the REC, but it could also be renewable and delivered at the same time as the REC. And then a PCC3, which is considered unbundled because the REC doesn't have any of the underlying energy that's attached to the product. So with that, let's move on to Bright Choice history on the next slide. So in 2018, Bright Choice was a board-approved product. There was an approved power content set at that time at 85% carbon-free. In October of that same year, the board approved use of what's called the Climate Registry. It's a carbon accounting methodology. Climate Registry is a nonprofit. It's a national emissions accounting methodology. It's widely used by load serving entities, including California IOUs, other CCAs, cities, it's still used. Next slide. We'll go into one of the changes that happened about a year later. PG&E initiated a formal large hydro and nuclear allocation process. This was determined by load share. Deliveries were to start in 2020. Acceptance had zero incremental cost to CCAs. At that time, EBCA initiated several discussions on whether EBCE should or should not take that nuclear allocation. It started with a November 2019 executive committee meeting, followed by extensive discussions at both the December 2019 and January 2020 board meetings. There was also a memo that was put together answering a number of questions that came up at those meetings, discussing risks, benefits, and costs. And it really was a fundamental question. The fundamental question for accepting nuclear or not, it came down to a trade-off between having nuclear and lower greenhouse gas emissions, or not having nuclear and accepting those higher greenhouse gas emissions. And ultimately, the EBC board elected to accept the large hydro allocation at that time and reject the nuclear allocation. The deliveries for the allocation to start in 2020. Next slide, please. With that introduction of the carbon-free allocation, the focus, oh, sorry, couldn't you go up one? There we go. The introduction of the carbon-free allocation, that focus shifted to renewable energy, and the Bright Choice renewable target was amended to include a clean energy procurement floor. This was based on PG&E's prior year renewable energy power content forecast, plus a 5% buffer that was to account for any uncertainty. And that buffer was determined by looking at previous PG&E renewable power content forecasts and actuals. And based on the analysis, a 5% buffer was included to account for that variability. Came to light that there were forecasting challenges that existed under that approach, primarily due to lack of visibility into PG&E's annual renewable target. Furthermore, the reporting lag that we talked about earlier means that actual values are not fully validated until the fall after the power is procured. So while that 5% buffer may have been sufficient to account for that difference in the forecasting in previous years, that approach landed EBC's renewable percentage a little lower than PG&E in 2021. Next slide, please. Another change that impacted procurement and emissions reporting in 2020 was Assembly Bill 1110. So AB 1110 modified the power content reporting methodology and emissions accounting methodology. It was implemented initially in 2020. Again, EBC was using climate registry at that time. It was widely accepted national emissions accounting methodology. And this Assembly bill required replacing the climate registry from sort of a global methodology to a California specific methodology. So a few slides back, we talked about PCC2 RECs, and EBCE purchases a portion of renewables as these PCC2 RECs, which are by and large solar, hydro, wind resources, but generated outside of California. So we know there's clean energy being generated, there's emissions being reduced. It's just that those emissions are being reduced in another state. And because of that, under this Assembly bill that we're required to use now, this California specific methodology, the new accounting adds an emissions factor for these resources that is equivalent to unspecified system power. Next slide, please. So where are we now? In 2020, the board adopted a clean energy goal for EBCE's portfolio to have zero net emissions by 2030. In April of last year, a path to reach that zero emissions goal was approved. 2 months later, in June of last year, those targets were increased by an additional 5%. This table reflects those targets, and really having a formal schedule gives us more certainty on both on annual procurement targets and on power content through 2030. So we were looking at those visuals for EBCE's two products earlier, and I noted, over time, if we were to recreate the visual for the power content each year, we would see the unspecified, that gray portion that we were looking at earlier. If we were to recreate that over time, that gray portion would would go smaller and smaller, and the emissions portion would also get smaller and smaller, going down towards our 2030 zero emissions target. So you'll see that unspecified portion reducing here, and the emissions portions reducing here. Next slide, please. This overview is really focused on Bright Choice, but it's important to note that EBC's total emissions really are inclusive of our Renewable 100 product also. And so this reflects the weighting of that, incorporating the Renewable 100 product into the total emissions. Next slide, please. So there've been a number of questions most recently at the March board retreat related to how EBCE compares against other CCAs on power content, on emissions and rates when compared against PG&E. And this table really puts all those pieces together. So it takes that 2021 power content label data for the content and emissions comparison. It uses January 23 PG&E rates compared against rates that are currently posted on the CCA websites. I will note that although the PG&E rates are from 2023, a number of the CCAs, this is just what's currently posted on the CCA websites. Some of these rates are from 22. They're just what's most recently available. There are different budget cycles for each CCA, and so these rate comparisons will be updated as we go further into the year. But just to walk through what we have here, there's a couple of bullets on the right of factors that contribute to emissions, and that's what the table is filtered by. It's filtered by the emissions column. EBCE is highlighted here in green. And just to walk through some of the differences here, of the 8 CCAs here that have lower emissions as reported on the power content label for 2021, 3 of those, Silicon Valley, San Jose, and Pioneer, accepted the nuclear allocation. Of the remaining 5, 2 of those, Peninsula and MCE, have higher rates than PG&E, and 1, 3CE, has lower renewable and hydro content when compared to EBCE. So that really leaves 2, Clean Power SF, which is part of the SFPUC, which owns Hetch Hetchy. It's a major competitive advantage, gives them access to large hydro generation. They're also significantly smaller than EBCE in terms of service area size. And finally, Sonoma, which is not as clear, but my guess is that they were able to secure large hydro and renewable contracts when pricing was at a different environment. Also, so Sonoma was established in 2014, so they really had a 4-year head start on where EBCE is. And again, a much smaller service area than EBCE. Clean Power SF also was established in 2016, several years before EBCE. And then finally, a 2022 snapshot. So this is really just a draft power content forecast positions for 2022. Again, the final power content label is mailed out in October. There's a formal reconciliation and an audit that has yet to happen yet. So these are certainly subject to change, but it does give an estimate of where we landed on content for 2022. PG&E released draft power content numbers I believe last month. I included the link on the bottom from where these were pulled from, and it gives a comparison of where we'll land on renewable content, on hydro, and carbon-free non-nuke on the bottom there.
Izzy, you're a rock star. I'm going to run through some clarifying questions before we go to comments, just because I want to get some things focused. So on slide, without a number, the one that says CCA comparison. So the issue that Tom and others have brought up is the comparison of the last column with 564 of carbon dioxide equivalents per megawatt hour versus PG&E's 98 pounds. That's correct, right? This is where the 5 times as bad and 6 times as bad number is coming from. I
believe that's where he is taking that from, yes.
Okay. I'd be interested in seeing this over time because it's been shown over and over and over, and EBCE staff has shown over and over and over that if we took half of PG&E's customers just away one day, that they would still have all of their contracts in place and their emissions would appear to drop really dramatically, even though it's because we took half their customers, not because they've done anything. Is that an accurate statement? I'm getting nods from Marie. Okay, so I remember hearing that in every single meeting when we were at the beginning. I had a clarifier on slide that says, where are we now? It shows 2023 at 29%. My understanding is that that was at 40%, or are we looking at data that is, are we just looking at that data from 2021 and we've actually dropped it now?
You mean the 29%, the unspecified power?
It says
So,
the slide that says, where are we now? So not that slide.
I believe it's slide 10, Adrian. Is this one?
Yeah, and so the number that we keep saying is 40%. Is that our data from 2021? And at 2023, we expect to be at 29%. And last year, we really were at 32%.
So yeah, so what you're seeing at the top that grayed out are past numbers. So we do have the 2021 finalized, and that 40% is actually a little bit above where our targets were, but that is where we landed. And then you'll see 2022 where it kind of turns a little bit of a green color. Those are what was forecasted for 2022. Again, those won't be finalized until October, and then you'll see the reduction as the years go on.
Okay, and then the renewable numbers that you put out, I mean, renewable 100 customers are not being served by 50% solar and 50% wind. They're just being credited with that, but they're still doing all of the balancing through gas and all of the peak through gas and everything else, right? It's just been credited to Bright Choice. But the number of, and like that difference is actually that 40% or 30% this year, I guess. Because they would have 60% or 70% if they joined us. So really the difference is that 30% and just for the renewable 100 customers, which is a tiny fraction of our population, right?
Can I actually speak to that? Sorry to jump in, Izzy. Describing, so what we're showing in terms of power content label reporting, and even how reporting renewable 100 customers as 50% solar and 50% wind is an accounting exercise that looks at our transactions. It's like, instead of going through your a company's audited financials every year and seeing where the money came in and went, it's like going through our audited financials as it relates to purchases of energy. In California, the state of California does not report energy consumption we do not report emissions in hourly granularity. So it is accurate to say that renewable 100 customers or MCE, I don't know, whatever they're all 100% renewable customers are, or PG&Es, none of them are technically getting 100% renewable energy. And if you are a PG&E 100% renewable customer in San Luis Obispo, you're not getting 100% renewable energy because you live right next to the nuclear power plant. You're getting nuclear energy all the time because electricity follows the laws of physics. It flows across lines following the path of least resistance, and it goes from where it's generated to the closest location of demand. So like what we report for emissions accounting and what we report on our power content label, we are reporting in keeping with the laws of the state and the rules around how we do, our balance, or our audited financials, if you will, for energy on an annual basis. But and Olivia, we can't actually answer your question about how much balancing and what type of energy from balancing was used for EBCE's Bright Choice or renewable 100 customers, because there isn't data in that level of granularity.
Okay, that makes sense to me. One other clarifier just that you brought up right there, and then we'll go to questions. One of these is reported on generation and one is reported on, like what we actually bought. There's and I'm forgetting the term for it right now. On sales. So sales is like 7% lower than generation, which is which, because I know that gives PG&E a fake appearing advantage because they're reporting sales as opposed to generation.
I'm not totally sure what you're referring to, but we had no, there in terms of reporting, there is no unfair advantage. We have the same reporting requirements. And so when we report our percent renewable, it's based on retail sales. And Jim, keep me honest, or Izzy, keep me honest, but I'm pretty sure that our power source disclosure report is also based on retail sales, which Anna Olivia, that's what you're thinking of. That's net of system losses, which are equal to about 7%.
Okay, that's, my brain needed that. That's great.
Thanks, Jim. I got a thumbs up from Jim. That was accurate.
Thanks. All right, that was the stuff I needed cleared on the slides. Do we have other clarifiers as opposed to discussion things? Are there, yeah?
Do you have the amount of customers PG&E has over the years relative to the amount of customers EBCE has? Because a lot of PG&E has gone to CCAs.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know this. I don't have this statistic off the top of my head, but I believe that PG&E is still like 30% of the state's demand, and EBCE currently has about 10% of what were PG&E's customers. So PG&E's bundled customer group is still a lot larger than EBCE's customers. But I don't have the, I couldn't tell you the annual gigawatt hour or terawatt hour comparison off the top of my head. It's more than 3 times larger.
But with other CCAs that are also in the service territory, those numbers start getting closer.
I believe that we've crossed the threshold, and that collectively CCAs are more than 50% of what was previously PG&E's total demand. If we haven't crossed it, we're around the 50% mark, maybe slightly over.
Which is cool, yeah. All right. Can we, okay, let's go. Have we received any written public comment on this item, or are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
You have 2 members of the public with their hands raised.
All right, due to timing, we have 2 more agenda items. Can you please drop it to 2 minutes?
All right, Blair Bigman, you're recognized for 2.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. First time I've attended a meeting for a while. As always, I guess I need to preface my words. I'm not the most experienced person how to talk about these things, but hopefully you can have patience and respect for my public comment anyway. And thanks for the public comment community process overall. I wanted to comment that, yeah, I mean, you're trying to learn how to make more accountable energy usage and practices, and thank you. And good luck. You made some attempts here today. Good luck in furthering those attempts. And it doesn't have to be a fearful subject to talk about. And out of really extreme politeness in how to talk about it, it can become a bit more regular and casual and open to talk about our nuclear content and allotment. Numbers are bandied around today of 40% and 60% overall extra usage we have available. At least, 10 to 15% of that has to be nuclear. It could be as high as 30 to 35. We have to really learn how to make that clear. And as what was said, bring that down over the years. And just good luck to a polite conversation that can be open and honest and not just extremely polite. And good luck on those efforts. And we can do it. And it is possible. We don't have to be afraid of that. I work on accountability issues. It's kind of my life's work at this time with tech things, how tech can be open, more open in the future of a local community. So good luck in the same sort of efforts. It's the ideas of peace. It's the ideas of open democracy, which is what we should be always striving for, and participatory democracy. It's the purpose of community energy. So thanks. Good luck with this item.
Jessica Tovar, Tom Kelly, actually, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. To the CAC, I hope you can appreciate the bobbing and weaving that we have been seeing from EBCE staff on this particular issue. It's everybody else's fault. It's the board's fault. It's the community's fault. It's everybody's fault. And they never take responsibility for the fact that they're producing the dirtiest power in Northern California from all CCAs. We never thought we'd ever have nuclear, Alex. You were at the meetings. We were all thrilled at the fact that we didn't have to deal with that issue. And then for the first 2 years we were operating, we were actually beating PG&E without this allocation. Suddenly, it's because the board didn't accept the allocation that we can no longer beat PG&E on GHGs. So listen, I took a look at what Peninsula Clean Energy is doing. They're offering 100% carbon free. That's 50 renewable, 50 hydro at a 5% discount to PG&E. They've got $238 million in the bank. They're about half the size of EBCE. They've got a white paper out that shows that demonstrates that they will be 100% renewable by 2025, 99% of the time in terms of 24/7. That's not just during the day when there's a lot of solar, but that's day and night. And they'll do that without increasing prices substantially. Where's EBCE? Here's my request. Let's see what prices are. Give us some kind of analysis on why we can't do what PCE is doing. Show us what the prices are for power. You say they're too expensive, they're high, but what does that mean? Give it to the board and let them decide whether they're high or not, and not leave it up to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Lawrence Lott, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi.
Hey, Lawrence, you want to restart this time? Lawrence,
Can you hear me again? Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you now. Go for it.
Thanks so much. So 2 points. One is that, of course, nuclear can lower greenhouse gases, but very few people want that. There will always be representatives of the nuclear industry that want that. So I just hope that whenever we hear proponents of nuclear that, that maybe we can.
Okay, so we lost your voice again, and we're gonna pause your time here and back it up 15 seconds.
That's really interesting. It just, in the middle of me speaking, it said recording in progress, and then it kicked me off of unmute back onto mute again. I don't know what's going on. That happened twice now. Anyway, so proponents of nuclear, they certainly have the right to champion for nuclear, but if they want nuclear, we just have to figure out a way how to downscale nuclear reactors so that we can keep it in their house somewhere, in their living room, and the nuclear waste. Maybe their family could sign a contract to keep the nuclear waste on their property until it becomes non-radioactive. As far as our what we've accomplished so far in terms of our goals, obviously we haven't done well enough. My biggest pet peeve is when I put solar PV on my roof right after the Iraq War. I learned very quickly that solar in fact, I went to Diablo Valley College to learn how to do solar installation and design. And then that's when I went ahead and did it, that it's very much more cost effective than PG&E. And over the years since I've done that, solar equipment, including the modules, has steadily come down in price to where now it's twice as cost effective as it was when I installed it. And over the same time period, the cost of electricity from PG&E has skyrocketed, and of course the cost of gas even higher. So there's got to be a way for EBCE to be putting solar on buildings throughout the Bay Area. When I ride on BART, when I go in, look down from the air, I see so many rooftops that don't have solar. The potential for solar is astronomical, solar PV, and it's so much more cost effective. We should be able to find a way how to get those upfront investments that pay over time and give customers lower priced energy. And I hope that we really get our act together now, because we've lost precious time, and start putting solar PV everywhere along the BART tracks, on buildings and in parking lots, and become a leader at low price, clean energy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Sorry about the technical issues on there. We just have someone in training. It's not like your voice is always welcome and encouraged. The next person?
There are no more members of the public.
Did you mention Jessica Tovar having her hand raised?
Ready?
Okay, great. So then we will close public comment, and we will questions and comments from the CAC. Is there any of our members participating remotely, because I can't see their hands, that have their hands raised? No. Nope. All right, I see some questions in the room. Cynthia, did you just do this?
Yeah, maybe we've gone over this already, but when I look at the CCA comparison, you referenced it, Ann Olivia, we see the pounds, the CO2
equivalents
per
megawatt hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I see PG&E at 98, and I see EBC at 564. That is a big difference. So can the staff elaborate on that difference, please?
If somebody could speak very specifically to this, because it's the heart of the concerns that are coming from the community, and it is definitely not understood.
I have to ask for a little bit more guidance on what the question is. The presentation that we just went through actually gave a lot of detail on how the pounds per megawatt hour of CO2 are calculated, the process behind that, the fact that we have to use a certain required calculation, the generation mix that goes into that. So it's not clear what element of additional clarification.
I guess I understand some of what you're saying, but I'm curious. I mean, it is a big gap, 98 versus 564. So, are the calculations so different that,
No, that we're all using the same calculation.
Okay, so why would one be so smaller?
So could we put up the slides again, Adrian?
Just do it on a very basic level.
There was a slide that went through, let's go back. There was a slide that described in 2021 what EBCE's, the power content label and the power source disclosure report had percentages. The nutritional label that started Izzy's presentation, it gave the numbers in percentages of what percentages of different types of resource were in EBCE's energy mix for Bright Choice as compared to what was in PG&E's energy mix for their baseline or normal customers. And so if you compare the percentages, EBCE, it's, I think, like slide 2, EBCE had 0 nuclear. No, it's the one, yeah, it's not this one. 0% nuclear for EBCE. I don't remember what PG&E's was, probably about 40%. PG&E had more renewable than us. Izzy talked about how the, you know, how the estimate plus 5% approach to determining how much renewable energy we should buy each year. That has worked in past years, but in 2021, it didn't work, and PG&E didn't sell as much of their renewables. So they ended up having more renewables than EBCE did. And then there was the point about PG&E not having any unspecified power, and we do have unspecified power because, yes, we use it for balancing purposes, but also because some of our hedges, some of the transactions that we enter into to protect our customers against price volatility are financial transactions. So the energy that we procure is actually procured from the market. And so we get the general emissions associated with that. This is not the right slide. It's the one that looks like a nutrition label. I think it's slide number 2.
We're having problems with the internet on my phone, so even I have the correct slide on my, but I can't.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Grace. That explains it. Yeah, if anyone has it in front of them, it's the one that looks like the nutrition label. And when people watch the recording of this video, I encourage them to hit pause and scroll back to, I think, slide number 2, the one that looks like the nutrition label.
This one.
Yeah, so that one shows what percentage of each type of generating resource EBCE was in 2021 and what PG&E was in 2021. There it is.
I think that while the presentation is exceptionally thorough, it may not be very accessible to a layman, of which many of our members of the public and board members are. So I think that's that member Landry was asking for a little bit of a simplified, less technical explanation about, I would say, the 40% reliance on unspecified power decision. But that would be, which led to the much higher emissions when measured by CO2 equivalents per megawatt hour. Do you want to take a second and look over those, and we'll move on to another question?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Member Litz, did you have a? Come back.
Well, it's more going with what Tom was saying, Tom Kelly was saying, comparing Peninsula to EBCE. And, you know, they're doing so much better. They are, according to this, charging a bit more than PG. But, and EBCE right choice is less. Or is on the CCA comparison slide, is that all of that's EBCE total, bright choice, and 100% renewable slot climbed in combined? Yeah, is that all of EBCE or just?
That's bright choice only.
Bright choice only. If it was all of EBCE, what would it look like?
Izzy had that on a slide later in the deck where she showed what EBCE would look like, including renewable 100. And for 2021, it would have been 409 pounds of CO2 per megawatt hour.
So it was lower, but still not great.
So the Peninsula Energy, just to piggyback on that, is what's shown there. That looks like their 100% option. What is their base option?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
What is the cost differential? Because you're not comparing the same thing here. So if we're comparing
I'm not sure.
EBCE's base product and Peninsula's premium product, that's not the same comparison.
These are actually all the base products for each of the CCAs. So those don't include rates for their premium products.
So Peninsula's base product is 100% renewable and carbon free.
I think you're looking at the wrong slide. It shows that it's, yeah, that is correct. That is correct. Yeah, 100%. No, it's, excuse me, it's 100% carbon free and there's no nuclear. It's not 100% renewable.
Right, renewable and carbon free is what I said. No.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Jim, are you?
I'm okay.
Member Souza?
Yeah, thank you. I think we've talked about this for quite some time. There's a lot of great points. The presentation was fantastic. I understand a lot more about maybe what happened. I still think there's a lot of technical confusion. And I really, I want to trust you guys in just asking you the question, are we really comparable? Are we better? And if we are better than PG&E, let's just take PG&E, not anybody else. How so? How so are we better than them? And I just, I kind of want to clear this up so we can move on to other, very important subjects such as, how are we gonna to make changes to our residents' efficiency and a bunch of other stuff that I'd really like to get onto. So if we could just kind of like maybe apples and apples, I don't know, just give us your true opinion of what is going on here. And I'd be happy with that. Thank you.
Hey, Izzy, would you remind me what slide was the one that showed our trajectory towards zero emissions?
That is slide 10, but it may actually be helpful to look at the last slide, the snapshot that shows where we are against PG&E specifically. If you look down there, it has a carbon-free non-nuke. So if you're comparing us specifically to PG&E, you have their nuclear content, which we do not have. You have our unspecified content, which they don't have. If you take out the non-nuclear, or you take out the nuclear, our carbon-free non-nuclear is significantly higher than PG&E.
So that's true, but look at what people are going to look at. They're going to look at, oh, the emissions are high. Yeah, PG&E is 96% carbon free for 2022. We will have more emissions in Bright Choice for PG&E in 2022 based on the way this looks. Can we go back to slide 10,
Slide
please?
10,
That shows
one more. Sorry, one more up. Yeah.
So this is our trajectory towards an emissions-free portfolio for all EBCE customers. When this was approved by the board in December of 2020, we were actually very clear that there was going to be a period of time where emissions were going to go up before they went back down. This was all designed to have rate stability, ensure that Bright Choice was able to be offered at a discount to PG&E, and to help us achieve our long-term sustainable goal of reduced emissions on an ongoing basis, zero emissions on an ongoing basis, but done in a way that was economically responsible for all EBCE customers, including the 30% low-income customers that we serve. So that to me is where EBCE is better. PG&E does not have let me say this, I am not aware of a PG&E plan to decommission the natural gas plants that they own. So I'm not aware of a PG&E plan to be zero emissions. That said, I'm no longer a PG&E employee. I don't stay up to date on all of their, public statements.
That makes sense to me. Member Souza, does that?
I do think that's important to know. I think that everybody has a plan. You know, we have to follow through with plans. If the projections are accurate, I think that, you know, we're going to have to go on a little bit more, I guess, lead on in going on with the plan and seeing how it plays out. And, you know, at the same time, taking a look again at maybe October in 2023, seeing, hey, you know, are the projections right? And then making corrections, or, you know, really finding out what is wrong if there is something wrong. So I just mainly I just kind of want to move on. And you know, I hear you guys, and I don't know, you know, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I understand that there were changes made, that the PCE2 is a mixture. It's not necessarily, you know, carbon based. So I get that. And so I just kind of at this point in time, I want accountability, but I don't think we're going to have it until we get the new numbers. So I'm just saying that I'd like to move on. Thank you. And thank you for your presentations.
Thank you, Member Suzette.
Thank you to Izzy.
Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for presenting the information. I'll be succinct with my comments. I think it's good to see that we're going to be trending downward over some period of time. To understand that puzzle, there's a picture of, you know, having no emission factors getting to that zero level. I think it's going to be important to understand what are those pieces that we need to fill in to get there by 2030. There is a high, you know, number of pounds at the moment, but we're trending down. We would look to go down. I think understanding what that looks like, what are the elements that are going to drive that, especially when we look at, some, you know, last month we had a battery solution next to a peaker plant. So are we supporting that? Is that part of the puzzle to really move us to zero emissions? You know, really being able to understand the path forward is to have zero emissions in the future by 2030. And there might be other competitive landscapes that might be doing it differently or better. We're trying to be reasonable, you know, sustainable. We moved forward. I was around when we were trying to develop these plans and saw the numbers that we have in revenue and setting us up for success. I think just understanding what that looks like, that transparency, that understanding those elements of those contracts that come before the board and here as well for feedback, how does that help us get that number down? So if we're looking at new contracts, new energy resource adequacy and everything else that goes with that, what does that really add to? Is that adding points to get down to that zero?
Oh, yeah.
How does that sort of balance the scorecard? So really understanding the scorecard to get us to zero, what are the things we're doing today to get us there, and what we choose not to do versus what we do. And I know the team at East Bay Community Energy does a great job of getting those contracts and creative things that I don't necessarily understand sometimes, but I try to ask questions before, after, during. So I think really having that roadmap, understanding how we get to zero, where we're at today, we're trying to understand why we're there. There's a big, you know, element of accounting and balancing and the PG&E and other organizations that might be showing less pounds of carbon emissions or GHG. I think there's a roadmap forward, and we're here to make that happen and support you to do that. I think just understanding what that looks like without feeling that you have to defend yourself. I think it's important to say that we're on a journey together and we're here to support you. And we're here to be part of the community to address concerns. And for some people who are elected or been elected in these committees, it's about perception is a reality. The reality is that we don't look that great. And it's, you know, we have a plan, let's see it through, and let's work through that process. And have trust and faith, and we'll hold you accountable too. So thank you. With a smile.
Thank you, Member Hernandez. Member Swaminathan?
Yes, I would like to thank staff for providing the presentation. I think it clearly lays out what are the differences between CCA and PG&E. And it's a construct of hydro and nuclear, how that was allocated, and the decisions we've made in the past that the board made a decision not to take on nuclear is one of the primary drivers of the emission levels being higher. So it is what it is. Everyone is marching towards the same goal, and the board has set a goal, a glide path to get to 100% by 2030. So let's go on that march. It's clear to me how it's calculated, and I will articulate that to my stakeholders as and when it arises. So thank you.
Thank you, members from the fund. Seeing no other, okay.
Very briefly, I do agree with Member Hernandez's comments. I would like to again review this when the compilations are completed for year 2022. So that'll be probably in about 6 months or in that area. And I want to just make sure that the, review to make sure that the trend is indeed going down. So, and I'm, and I'm sure that is the intention, but I would like to review the, data when the 2022 comes out. And also, I think you brought up a good point, Member Hernandez. We have to look at this from a holistic point of view and the impacts. I'm not an energy expert. I'm a social worker by profession, although that's not intended to be an excuse. But I want to know the impacts of the various contracts, that we are engaging in, and and how that impacts, the downward trend also. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Landry. So just a couple quick notes here. Looking at the chart that you provided, and Izzy, really, thank you so much. And Marie, always just very, very much for the efforts in the presentation. And I hope that you hear the questions as questions of not understanding and seeking clarity because we're representatives of the public and have questions. So I was really interested on the slide that has the CCA comparison. Clean Power SF and Sonoma and 3CE all managed to have less nuclear than us, and in some cases considerably higher cost savings. Like, wait, wow, I recognize that 3CE is 4% lower on both renewable portfolio standards, like California eligible renewables, and large hydro, but they're at over 56% cost savings, which is just like, that's very impressive. And one of the core requirements of CCAs under legislation is cost savings to our customers. Sonoma is just a little bit better cost savings than we are, less nuclear, and considerably higher on both RPS qualifying and large hydro. And Clean Power SF is 18%, almost 19% less expensive than PG&E, much higher renewable and hydro, and still lower nuclear. So, knowing that West Coast people will pay more for renewable energy is not like news at all. That's been true for a long time, but these folks are doing things at really considerable cost savings. So I'm interested in seeing what it is that they're doing. I like that we plan to get to 80% by 2025. I think that is really important, and I remember well staff saying that it would go up before it went down. And there's really not any more time for this. I don't like that this felt like a staff commercial for nuclear. I think that there's a lot of other factors that could be weighed on far more heavily here. But the presentation was really good and the information is good. I like the trajectory, and we don't look good. we don't look good at 564 pounds. I do look forward to seeing the new stuff that's coming out. And I don't know if any of that's helpful, but that's what that is.
Yeah.
So member Swaminathan, and then we are going to move on to the next as it is 7:48.
So just clarifying question, the 3CE number, the 56%, is there arithmetic error there? It doesn't seem like it should be 50% below.
Yeah, that number's.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, we actually reached out to 3CA last week and confirmed that customers are on a cost of service rate, which is on a 3-year cycle. They also said that they look at rates every budget cycle with their next review coming mid-year. And I think one thing that might be helpful to note here too is that there's differing budget cycles across different CCAs. So it will be interesting to see how rates compare and what that joint rate comparison look like a little later in the year, as well as what the final power content label numbers look like.
Okay, thanks, Izzy.
And that 2022 snapshot is awesome. That last slide is really good. Okay, we're gonna move on because it's 7:49. Yeah, good. All right. So rather unfortunately, these two things, they're important things. So we're going to touch on them. We're going to be as respectful of people's time as possible. And thank you for the robust discussion. I know that's been a pressing item. So the next item is agenda item number 6, which is from JP Ross on the Foreign Mobility Loan Agreement.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Hello, Community Advisory Committee. JP Ross, Vice President of Local Development. And I'll be talking through one of the programs that we have been working on for a while and are bringing to the board an action item this Wednesday to approve our ability to issue this loan. We took it to the executive committee meeting earlier this month. And we'll be bringing it to the full board. So I'll jump into it and be brief. Next slide, please. So this is a medium and heavy duty charging project loan, which EBCE is supporting in our territory. We want to be helping make Alameda County and San Joaquin County a first mover in medium and heavy duty vehicle electrification, along with our other vehicle electrification initiatives. And in support of that, we requested budget approval in last fiscal year's budgeting cycle for some medium and heavy duty projects. And then we ended up issuing a RFO, a request for offers for projects in September, and went through the application review process. And selected a counterparty for mobility that I will be discussing, who's planning to develop a substantial medium and heavy duty. It's actually a heavy duty charging project in Livermore that will be online in 2024. So next slide, I'll describe the project. So the project is called the Greenville Charging Project. And it is going to be developed on Greenville Road in Livermore. It is an EV charging project, and our loan is going to support the development of the charging infrastructure on this site. And by providing a lower cost loan, we're able to reduce the cost to the drayage truck operators who are going to be using this site. So the site as a whole going to have it's built on a large brownfield site right next to 580. It's a little over $14 million to build the whole site, and it'll be capable of charging up to 100 vehicles per day. As per the terms of our loan agreement, we're requiring prevailing wage on construction of the charging infrastructure, and there's a commitment by the counterparty for mobility to use our RE100 product that not only lowers the emissions, but also delivers some low carbon fuel standards credits, which go into making the project economic. The idea here is that charging or vehicle operators, if you look at the top, there's two offerings for customers that Forum Mobility has. One offering is their full service offering, where they offer a truck lease and charging kind of in an all-in-one wrap on a multi-year contract. So the vehicle operator gets the truck and gets charging infrastructure for the fuel for that truck under one contract. And then there's also a charging as a service offering where people can come and use the chargers and just receive the fuel. They don't have to get the truck on its own. And this is a substantial heavy duty charging infrastructure project. And it will not be a surprise to folks who are paying attention that diesel emissions are a very large proportion of our poor air quality, and that disproportionately affects our disadvantaged and lower income communities and those living next to freeways. And so reducing vehicle emissions and transitioning heavy duty diesel vehicles to electric vehicles has a substantial benefit to our communities, many of which live in very close proximity to freeways and thoroughfares. So that's what the project looks like. If we go to the next slide, I'll talk a bit about the loan. So the loan is $4.5 million, which supports the construction of the facility. It's a 10-year loan at 5% interest. And then we are securing the loan with a deed of trust and some assets on site that kind of protects us in case there are issues paying the loan back and potentially goes into default. And then we also have gotten a parent guarantee from the holding company. So we're not just loaning to a limited liability corporation who could walk away fairly easily. We have a parent guarantee. So we built in some pretty substantial protections. In addition to that, the loan is kind of well leveraged, meaning there's a lot of other capital in the project. So we're a kind of a small but important portion of this project, and are feeling pretty kind of protected for the money that we are putting into it. That loan will generate about $1.25 million in revenue, so in interest rates over the term of the loan that we'll be able to reinvest into additional local programs and projects. And it's bringing other capital to the equation. So we're putting in $4.5 million, and then they're bringing another 3x kind of additional capital to the project, which is what gets you to that $14.3 million total project cost. Next slide, please. So Forum Mobility, they are an organization that's really just focused on heavy duty vehicle electrification. They are targeting drayage trucks. There's about 30,000 drayage trucks in ports and rail yards. These are the trucks that kind of move the containers from ships to logistics companies. There's a tremendous amount of them. They're constantly circling around moving goods, and Alameda County and San Joaquin County are very much a hub of drayage and goods movement. They're focused on transitioning as many of these vehicles as possible to electric. They've got some projects down in the port of Long Beach, and they're building out this project and looking at other potential projects in our service territory. So we're excited to help them out. It's a very experienced team who has built a lot of solar and storage projects and brings a lot of experience to bear, and has raised significant project deployment capital and investment capital to rapidly scale in this heavy duty vehicle electrification sector. And right now, in addition to this project, they're also looking at 2 other sites in EVCE service territory, which is quite exciting. Next slide, please. That may be it, huh, Adrian? Oh, yeah, that's it. So sorry about that. So the action item to the board is to support a resolution that gives the CEO Nick the authorization to sign the loan agreement. And we're really trying to do that kind of by the end of the month is our target date of completing that loan doc. We won't actually fund the loan until project completion. So we're not taking development risk of that loan. It will only kind of take operational risk. So it's another way that we look to protect ourselves as we look for different ways to deploy our capital to support the types of projects that we need to fully electrify and move this transition forward. That's it.
Thank you, JP. That was awesome. We're gonna go first to public comment. Are there members of the public with their hands raised, or have we received correspondence on this item?
Yes, we have one member of the public with their hand raised.
Okay, we're gonna go with 2 minutes. Remembering that it is 8 o'clock.
Right, the big man, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for this item. It's good to hear about it. It's good to hear. Boy, 4 or 5 years ago, we were not at all considering the electrification process for lower income neighborhoods. And now we are. And it's nice. There was a really good effort to do that. And it's a lot more of a regular conversation now. Thank you for that. And I suppose Jessica Duvar has something to do with that also. And I know that President Biden has just signed something that we have to have an electric car process going a lot more fully by 2030, I think. The same carbon dates that we're supposed to be working on. Joe Biden has set dates for electric vehicle use. That's pretty impressive. That I guess always can have criticism that I hope can be looked into, and from that, what can be a pretty impressive program schedule for ourselves. So good luck in those efforts. And it was really interesting on the previous item, the concepts of solar use mentioned by a public comment person that I just hope we can't stress enough in the different ways of finding solar use in our lives. And thanks a lot for the chairperson's words today to really want to question our future use of nuclear. And I hope we can be really clear about that process. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the public with their hands raised?
There are no further members of the public with their hands raised.
Being conscious of time, but really still encouraging you to ask questions. Are there any questions from the members of the CAC? Member Lutz? I can't see our online members, so if we have somebody go like this, so I can, because I don't want to make them last always.
So we have member Liu with the question. With their hand.
Actually, do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Member Liu?
Hey, JP, thanks so much for the presentation. It's really interesting to know this business model and to see very exciting projects to build a large EV charging infrastructure in our territory. One question I have is, so for the loan, what's the payback? How the loan got a payback? Is it funded by the revenue from the EV infrastructure operator?
Yeah, that's correct. So they'll be charging for the fuel delivered, so the electricity that's delivered, and they'll also be charging for the leased vehicles that they're leasing to operators. They'll be charging for kind of overnight charging when vehicles are out of service and have a long period to charge over about 8 hours. And they're also going to be charging for opportunity charging. So when vehicles are kind of coming through mid-route, need to get a charge up in order to get to their destination or back again. And so there'll be two sources of charging revenue. And those sources of revenue will be what is used to pay back the loan over a 10-year term.
Okay, thank you, JP.
Thank you, Member Liu. JP, Member Litz?
Yeah, JP, this looks great, and my questions are more on scale-up potential. You said like 30,000 trucks potentially could be electrified statewide, so that's probably round numbers 5 to 10,000 in the Bay Area, and you're doing 100 of them. Seems like there's a lot of potential for scale up. And I just want to point out that this is obviously just the start, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. So it looks great, go, but you know, next year we want to see you doing 10 times as much, and the year after 100 times as much is sort of the message I want to give you. That's all.
Awesome. Okay, so clarifier, the funds for this is coming out of the electrification transportation budget from the local development, right? Great.
That's correct.
Already approved. This is something that's cool. Are there, so the funds are going for operation, which means we're not funding any of the construction loans, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we agreed with the counterparty that we would only fund the loan after COD, after commercial operation date. So we're not taking construction risk. So it's operations.
Great. And then are there any restrictions placed on the funds? Like, must it be used for operation, or can it be used to pay back the construction loans?
Yeah, it'll be part of their full capital stack, and a lot of that will go for construction. They've got their own construction financing, so they haven't asked us for that. So, you know, in essence, it goes towards construction, but the fact that we don't pay it until construction is complete means we don't take any construction risk of like the project not getting built and us having paid the money.
So it's part of the conversion. That makes sense. And then the only other part, and then I'll be seeking a motion to support in a second, is it says that once operational, then they're going to look at incorporating DER like solar canopies and mobile and stationary storage. They're not building that into it as part of construction? Like that'll come
they aren't. To Member Lutz's point, there's not a lot going on here. There's no project like this anywhere in our territory, and not many anywhere. So there's enough going on to just get the project online. They're fully committed to the solar and storage assets. They will help reduce the operating costs and manage things like subscription rates and demand charges. And the entire team has built hundreds of megawatts of solar and storage projects. That's their background. They know that space really well. They're kind of de-risking the construction of this, building a medium and heavy duty or a heavy duty charging lot of this kind hasn't been done. So we want to encourage them to focus and deliver on the main part of this. And then we will also, watch and make sure that they deliver the second part on the solar and storage.
That's awesome. And I would love to see us in the future move into supporting the addition of solar and storage in this location, because what a cool thing. So seeking a motion to support.
So moved.
All right, motion to support by Member Hernandez, seconded by Member Lutz. Seeing no further discussion, can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes. Member Landry.
Yes.
Member Hu.
Excused.
Member Liu.
Yes.
Member Swaminathan.
Yes. Yes.
Member Lakshman. Member Darliga. Member Pacheco. Member Souza.
Yes.
Member Kaur. Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Chair Eldred. Yes. Motion passes.
Great. All right, thank you so much, JP. This is really exciting. It's really, really exciting. Have a great night. All right, Annie, hi. We are gonna move on to the next agenda item, which is the EBCE brand evolution and name exploration, which is an informational item presented by Annie Henderson and Teresa McDermott. And special guest.
Hi. This is my little special guest who I need to get to bed shortly. But good evening, everyone. Thanks for hanging in here. I'm just going to give an intro and then turn it over to Teresa. But I wanted to sort of lay a little bit of additional groundwork. Wanted to tell you all a little bit about the process that we've been going through.
Moony Moon, you gotta be kidding.
Can we please?
Oh, JP, we can still hear you. So we've been for a long time been looking to see how do we increase our customer engagement. That, you know, as a CCA, we automatically get our customers to serve them with Bright Choice or Renewable 100. But a lot of what we are focused on and what as a state and as a society we really need to move towards are things that are not just default options. These are decisions that our ratepayers, our customers, they need to make, and they're very personal decisions. They're about how they go about, you know, getting to work, getting their children to school, how they get around to see their family. Also, you know, what are they cooking with? How do they heat their house? So it's very personal decisions. And it's taken us quite a while to sort of gather the expertise externally. It led up to hiring Teresa as our head of brand. She is an expert in brand strategy and brand positioning. But we realized, you know, we need to start to speak to the members of our community in a slightly different way, because unlike things where, you know, if you're an internet provider, there is a demand for internet and you're trying to fill it with the best possible service. In our case, we're often trying to create the demand and fill it. So it's a very unique position that we're in, and we're a public agency. We are not a corporate entity. We don't have a consumer packaged good, but we sort of need to live in that space with our consumers' minds and talk to them in that way. So all of this, Teresa's going to do this more eloquently, but I wanted to say we have been discussing with an ad hoc committee of the CAC, as well as an ad hoc committee of the board, as well as doing public surveys and other forms of outreach to collect information and data. What we want to share with you here is a bit more of the background. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it now? What have we learned so far? We presented a version of this to the executive committee meeting earlier this month. Of course, we're taking it to the full board we can go back to the presentation. I'll wrap it up, I'm sorry. We'll take it to the board on Wednesday. And we're sort of well into the process. We've been trying to inform you know, critical stakeholders like members of the CAC, but without having this be a fully public process, because that's just generally not the way you come up with developing a new brand position. But informing through these public forums along the way, so that we are, you know, getting the necessary feedback and input, but also sort of moving it forward so that there is an actual there to discuss and not just sort of very broad anomalous concepts. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa. And are you having internet problems there, Raisa, or are we good with bringing back the presentation?
We are. It was just, we're introducing Teresa, so.
Want to see your face.
Thanks, Annie. Thank you. You guys can just hop to the agenda slide real quick. Good night, Alma. Thank you. It's very nice to be here, and I will do this topic justice, but also go quickly, knowing that it's getting late and everybody has things to get back to. I will talk about the agenda. I just want to share, as Annie said, you know, this has been an investigation that the team has been doing for a while to kind of come to realize that we are at this point in our maturation, and we have these you know, two kind of twin drivers that are telling us that now is the right time for us to think about evolving our brand and repositioning it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those drivers are. Then I'm going to share some of a little of the data that we have that's influencing our thinking about those drivers and what a brand evolution might mean. And then I'll just share a little bit about the stakeholder engagement, some specifics. Annie has said we've been talking with, we've had feedback from ad hoc committees and the exec com, and we have a kind of forward-looking set of engagement going too for the changes that we're looking to drive over the next couple of months. And then we will talk specifically about what those changes are. So you can go on to the next slide, please. Go ahead and go to the next one. So like I said, you can go, sorry, thank you, perfect. There are these twin drivers that are kind of telling us now is the right time to evolve our brand identity. And when I say brand identity, what I'm talking about specifically is what Annie said, how we talk about ourselves, how we present to the world, and the kind of artifacts that help us do that. Things like the name of our agency, our logo, the kind of graphic design symbols and things that we use to support all of that. Those are all elements of brand identity that are kind of specifically under investigation right now. And what we're talking about now is the drivers for evolving those and really kind of just, as I said, bringing our expression in line with the reality we're dealing with right now. So a little background. Many of you are probably involved with this, so I'm probably telling you something you already know. When we started out, folks didn't really know what CCAs were. The idea of energy choice was not something that people were as familiar with then as we are now. So the job that we had through our marketing communications at the time was to educate people. Really just help them build trust and understanding of who we are and what we were doing and how the bill was going to work and the fact that we were real and not a scam. So the job was education. You can go on to the next slide. Thanks. And the identity that was crafted was really thoughtfully done to support that education. It was clean, it was direct, but it was also very firmly in this space that has it looking like another CCA or another utility. And that was smart, right? Because, when people landed on our website, we wanted them to feel like this was the right place to be, that they were in the right place and that this is a company that could deliver energy to them. But we have a very literal name, East Bay Community Energy. We have a very literal logo that kind of shows all the components of our power resources in there and everything. And it's just very direct, very straightforward, and very appropriate for when we were in the beginning phases of our maturation. So you can go on to the next slide. The good news is like we've been very, very successful in what we've been trying to do with this. So we've had great results. I'm not the first person telling you about these, right? We're saving money for our customers. We're putting money back into our communities. We're having other communities raise their hands and say, hey, we like what you're doing. We want to join. We are keeping those customers once they join us. We're causing a lot of great new power projects to be built, clean power projects to be built. And we are well on our path, as we heard from Izzy today, to our 100% clean by 2030. So we feel very good about, kind of where we are and that we are we had this vision for when we launched the agency and we're delivering on it and we're continuing to grow and mature. So you can go to the next slide, please. That takes us to kind of where we are now. And this is kind of the, and phase. We've proven and we've satisfied ourselves that we're pretty able to deliver on this supply side of things. And we're going to keep doing that. And we're going to keep improving upon that, as we talked about earlier today. But we now have the capacity and the wherewithal and kind of the the muscle behind ourselves to really start doing what Annie was talking about, and that is raising awareness and driving demand for electrified alternatives to traditionally greenhouse gas producing appliances and solutions and things like that. So we're not trying to drive demand for more electricity. We're trying to drive demand and create awareness around to replace those things that we know that are less efficient, that are greenhouse gas emitting, like cooktops, like gas-powered cars. So we want to be influential in this space that, as Annie mentioned, has traditionally been a very personal and consumer-driven decision. These are kind of emotional decisions that people will make, and they're not used to having their utility company seek to influence on them. You know, maybe they have Architectural Digest or, you know, Car and Driver or an auto company or HGTV. These types of entities influence people on these sort of consumer choices. Traditionally, your power supplier hasn't done that, but we have this unique position in that, you know, we are close to our customers, and we have the ability to do creative partnerships with all sorts of suppliers to, you know, bring these projects and these solutions to people in a cost-effective way. That we want to have them raise their hand and say, yes, we want them. So make them aware and make them excited and make them accepting of these greenhouse gas producing alternatives out there. So that's how we've got where we are with saying we want to add kind of demand to the traditional supply side of things that we've done. So those are kind of, that's the strategic imperative we have around changing or evolving our brand identity. I'm going to talk next about the other side of that twin driver, and that is a geographic imperative. And that was touched on earlier today too. You can go to the next slide. So as we all know, Stockton seeks to join us, and you guys are helping us bolster that and make that actually happen sooner rather than later. But we do know from our kind of discussions with folks in Stockton and San Joaquin County that while they're very excited to have the service, they're maybe not quite as excited about our name. There's some concern that the idea of East Bay doesn't play very well out in San Joaquin County, and we'd heard that maybe some people felt a little bit put off by that. So we did some research out there. It was a statistically significant sample of 400 people, and we talked to them about a lot of things that will help us market and kind of work with our customers once we're out there and understand their wants and needs. But we asked them specifically about our name, and we gave them some other option, like kind of fake name options to reflect on also, and ask them what they liked about these names, what they didn't like about these names, which were appealing, which, you know, kind of were resonant with them. And the end result of it was when they looked at all these names, they told us that East Bay Community Energy and EBCE were their two least favorite names. And when we asked them why, they told us kind of basically two different things. To EBCE, they said, we don't like acronyms. And this is normal. Nobody likes acronyms when they don't know what they stand for. So this is not at all surprising. Acronyms are just impersonal and they're confusing, and they are kind of a barrier to communication, because if you don't know what the letters stand for, you're kind of left trying to figure that out. And it's hard to hear anything else that somebody says to you if you're just trying to decode what a bunch of random letters mean. To East Bay Community Energy, people said, you know, I'm not in the East Bay. San Joaquin County or Sacramento is not part of the East Bay. And what's more, you know, I don't agree with the values of the East Bay, and everything in East Bay is too expensive. So we know that we have this like kind of barrier in terms of our name as we expand into Stockton. And so this was a red flag for us, because certainly we don't want, you know, what will be a very large portion of our service area feeling not included. So it is these twin drivers of this, you know, kind of desire to move on and be more evangelical and bring people to kind of electric solutions for traditionally greenhouse gas producing things. So the strategic imperative plus this geographic imperative that we're just talking about are the reasons we want to kind of evolve our identity right now. We can just look at the next two slides really quick. These are just basically to say, on the flip side of things, we know that there is traction with the name East Bay Community Energy. It's not huge, but there are people out there that are familiar with EBCE. This slide talks about, you know, when we ask them, are you familiar with us? About 30% of the people 30 to 35% of the people that we ask that to, customers, are able to tell us, yes, I'm familiar with EBCE. And you can go to the next slide. This is when we don't tell people, this is unaided awareness. About 20% of the people are able to actually, if we say, you know, you receive power from somebody besides PG&E, do you know who it is? About 20% of the people, 22% of the people are able to actually tell us that it's EBCE. So all of that is to say, we do know that there is traction and there is awareness for the name EBCE or East Bay Community Energy out there. So when and if we were to evolve our identity with our name and our logo and things like that, we would have work to do to bring those people along. But we're pretty confident that we can do that because we intend to kind of select a name that's maybe more memorable, easier to kind of retain, something maybe a bit more emotive. And we're going to take a very deliberate, thoughtful, and kind of ongoing communication cadence with folks to ensure that nobody's left behind and that there isn't any confusion out there as to what the heck happened to EBCE or anything like that. You go on to the next slide. So that's our rationale. This is just to say we are aware that these are kind of big shifts we're looking to make, and we are seeking to be inclusive and thoughtful about how we gather information to help us shape the decisions that we're making and the eventual proposals we bring to the board for approval. We are taking various and sundry different outreach efforts with all of our stakeholders in this nice spider diagram. You can go on to the next slide. As Annie mentioned, we have ad hoc committees of both the board and the CAC. Their members are listed here, and we are in regular contact with all these folks. And we appreciate very much the time and input they've given to us. Next slide. And then this is just kind of a deeper dive into the engagement that we're doing. We will be, as Annie said, taking this item to the board this week, and we will be with the exec com at the beginning of next month to kind of talk in more depth about the actual process for taking around ideating new names and aspects of our identity, and assuming we get to a point where there's support and buy-in for some new brand identity elements, we will be seeking approval for those in both the May meetings and the June meetings. So you can go on to the next slide and find the final slide there. And this is just kind of a visual timeline of where we're at. And just to say, assuming we do take these changes in May and June, there would be then, further discussion that we'd be talking with you about the process of rolling all these things out and applying them over time. That is all I have right now. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That was a fantastic presentation. We're going to go first to public comment. Are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
Yes.
Okay. It is 8:26. I'm very sorry. Can you drop it to 90 seconds, please?
Give us a second.
Kind of a big one. Keep it at 2 minutes. It's fine. It's not that big a difference.
So you said 2 minutes.
2 minutes is great.
Sorry, give us a second. The internet is not working.
Sometimes.
Yeah, no.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for allowing 2 minutes at this time. 90 seconds is a very nice compromise. It's definitely better than 1 minute. So thank you that you can. Not all councils can adjust in that way. Thank you. For this item, just a thank you that and how it was presented, and that you talked about the concepts of the public. And in this meeting today, it was mentioned how ideas can eventually be made more clear to the public. How can we speak a language that more everyday people can understand? Those kind of goals are incredibly important for the future of community energy.
And if you offer that sense and that feeling of really wanting to work towards renewables and really wanting to work towards public understanding, those two concepts, I mean, it's the real ways to really develop our future. And people will know that and feel that. And if you don't lie to them, you know, if you don't keep things hidden and secretive and give false information, then we're on the right track. But if you guys are going to continue on this nuclear trek the way you have been, we're not going to get there. And you guys really got to work on the concepts of unspecified energy usage and how to make that clear exactly how much nuclear we're using. I mean, you can get the middle class community really upset at that as well. And it's important to really work on that issue and make it clear to us in the future. And you don't have to be afraid to make that clear and what we have to work on. Other than that, you know, real good luck. It's nice you explained what's going on in Stockton right now. To me, East Bay Community Energy is basically kind of a founding father of how we talk about community energy overall. They spent decades in good steady practices that are basically spawned out to the entire Bay Area. And those are the kind of practices, you know, your good public meeting practices that you do are a part of that. Good luck how to explain that in the future. And that can be a good starting point, how to talk about openness and accountability in our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Do we have another member? Oh, all right. Seeing none, are there comments from the CAC? And we'd like to go first to members who are participating remotely. No hands. No hands.
I'll just say I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this ad hoc committee. I'm enjoying learning more about the be part of this journey to whatever East Bay Community Energy becomes next. So look forward to continuing the dialogue. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Thank you. And thank you all for your support.
It looked like the decision would be made in May and June, and it looked like it might be made twice. That was a little confusing.
I didn't provide you enough detail. So in May, we, according to our schedule right now, and these things, can take more time, but according to our schedule right now, we would be bringing a recommendation to vote on a new name for the agency, a DBA, not a change to the JPA name, but a DBA name. We'd be bringing that recommendation to the board in May. And from there, then we would, once the name is settled, we would be working on developing the brand look and feel that supports that new name. So for instance, a new logo or a revised logo, and kind of the supporting colors and fonts and other trade dress that you'd have with that. And that we would be bringing to the board to be with a recommendation to be voted on in June. So it's a two-step process.
Call it less energy. How about that?
Although we would love to name everything after Jim. Member Landry?
Yes, I thank you for this presentation. I would like to see the name include what we are trying to do with the community. What is the purpose of the East Bay Community Energy? So a name that, that captures what you have said in this PowerPoint here, drive electrification through community investment, incentives and rebates. So not only the location of, where we are geographically, but working with the community stakeholders, bringing in branding that would include interest from the community that would engage dialogue. I think we could have a jazzier name so that you know, I mean, what we are trying to do here with the community.
Right.
And I don't know exactly what that might mean, but you know.
Well, I mean, it is, you know, the name can do a lot, and we agree. We would like to have a jazzier, more memorable name, you know, to kind of fit with this stage in our evolution. But a name only is part of it, right? A name can only ever carry so much weight. You know, the name is a very, very visible part of your brand, but the brand is, you know, is everything you do, from, you know, obviously like the baseline programs we offer, from you know, the marketing and advertising we do, from the way that our CSRs answer the phones. That's all kind of accrues to how we experience a brand. But I absolutely take your point that, you know, our goal with kind of you know, this step in the evolution of how we want to build our brand expression is about being able to better engage our customers, our constituents, our stakeholders. We want to be a much more kind of top of mind and influential kind of player in their lives, because we know that these, you know, consumer choices that people have to make are going to go a long way towards the decarbonization that we all want. And somebody kind of a neutral player like us, you know, without kind of profit skin in the game, is really well positioned to jump in and try to influence, educate and influence on those decisions.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for your work, your presentation, your follow through, the very clear way that you listen to what people are saying, and how obvious it is that you incorporate it into the materials. It's been an honor to watch the evolution of the information and the presentation. So that is all. This is an informational item, so it doesn't require any action on our part this evening. Seeing no further discussion, I will move on to the last agenda item, which is CAC member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future CAC agendas that have not already been brought up, because we do have a list running. Yep.
Well, let's add to the list.
Great. This is the time. This is the
Add
time.
to the list. From what I heard this evening, there was discussion about a meter. Is it a meter collar? Some type of device for older homes, maybe. We could look at that, explore that. I'm also interested in net energy meter incentives. I know that the CPUC reversed some of, well, did reverse it, but what can EBC do to encourage net energy meter incentives? More microgrids, I think I heard. Investment in more microgrids, especially in the school districts, you know, to have a solar, battery solar, so that when they, has a backup, so when the, you know, the main energy goes down, that each school has a, you know, a source of power. So I'd like to see some exploration in those areas, including hospitals also. Hospitals probably haven't already, but school district, battery storage, and I think that covers it. More smaller micro grids throughout the county, especially in low income and disadvantaged
You are going to
areas.
love our local development conversation. Absolutely, that's on the list. Other guys? All right. Saying that. What?
I was going to comment as well. I was going to bolster Member Laundrie's request around the NEM incentives. I think a lot of it is around storage. And storage is really expensive because I've actually just pulled the trigger to acquire solar on my house. It's just, but the battery storage is like 20 grand more for any kind of battery. So I think as we see NEM3 roll out, it's gonna be important to understand how can we incentivize people to store their energy. I mean, it's gonna go back before, maybe not made it to NEM2, now that it'll be NEM3. And of course, those incentives are critical, and really see how we can make it towards that roadmap of zero emissions, and what are we things we can do? What's on our menu? I guess that's part of that roadmap and discussion. So I think I just want to see more of that, and maybe these pieces of it help. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, we got all that? Okay. Massive gratitude to all of our staff and our clerks this evening. This will adjourn the meeting of the CAC for Monday, May 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m.